Captain's Log 001. I always wanted to say that in a voice message, just because I like Star Trek over Star Wars. But this is going to probably be the first post in this Discord, the chat community. First of all, welcome to the chat community. And I'm Marie Shadows, as you know. I was going to be like, welcome to the chat community. I'm your host, Marie Shadows. That's what happens when you, for the past 6 years, say, welcome to the Square Circle podcast. I'm your host, Marie Shadows, and today we're discussing whatever the topic is. But this is a little bit different. Sometimes I feel like I tend to go back and like recreate stuff, and I want to get to a point where I don't just abandon things because I feel like if there's no engagement, it feels like an abandonment. I just like to keep things fresh. The spark still there if you want to think of it as like a romantic thing. But this first voice note is to welcome you to the Discord. What I'm thinking, everything is a work in progress. Nothing is set in stone. Cards subject to change, as we've all heard. And as you know, I've been doing wrestling podcasting, wrestling everything as content for the past 6 years, but I basically fell in love with professional wrestling at the age of 7 and basically did everything that I could to make my way to WWE in 2018. And as we see on Twitter, sometimes that gets weaponized against me, but I don't care. That's an accomplishment that nobody can take away from me. And I really do love what I do. And I am still on the indies, even though it's not like in a full time capacity. You see me everywhere here and there. There's just some limitations here and there, but then again, I'm still working hard behind the scenes to lend a hand where I can always lend a hand because I'm always available and or adaptable. It's just a money situation, and that's me being like completely honest. That's all it is. So this is the first note. Um, and I wanted to just welcome everybody and basically tell you the idea behind the chat community. You know how like streamers are always like either talking to chat while they're on Twitch or YouTube or whatever your streaming platform is and whatever streamer you listen to. So basically like that's all we do is call you guys chat. Hey chat, what's up chat? Welcome to the chat. Welcome, thank you for chatting with us. Call you guys chat. So because we all chat together, why not just call this the chat community rather than something, that represents me? It could represent all of us, with me included. That was my way of thinking. And so the chat community is born. I do have another Discord called Shadow Den. That's like a personal one with some really cool people that I really do love. But I do want to have a Discord again, even though I got burned during the last time of making a Discord because sometimes people just want to be assholes. Sometimes people just want to be stupid, and it's like you give, you know, whoever you represent a bad name for being stupid like that, and just doing really disrespectful shit. Anyway, so this here, I always tend to want to have my community in one place, and obviously Discord is the way to go. On Twitter, I had a poll where it was like, "Hey, what is the best community platform to like have everyone in one place?" That's me like paraphrasing and adding a little bit more to it. But everybody, 56% of people voted for a Twitter group chat. I do not know how to do a group chat, even though I know how to do it. It's not that difficult, but I like to be a little more organized. I like to make sure that we have like conversations in the right place. If we're all just having one big thread of a huge conversation, and if I'm like, hey guys, I'm live, how many people are gonna like scroll up just to see it? Or if I'm like, hey, I dropped a new podcast episode about wrestling or about my new shows, like who's really gonna scroll up to see it if like we get a lot of people chatting in there. And then I had campaign a little bit about getting a blue check mark if that could be available and if that could be very very helpful, so that way I could make a community and maybe that could be better and I could just chat with everybody and like we all share ideas. But of course, I don't know, but I decided to go with a Discord. Mainly everybody has a Discord, and Discord was the runner up in that poll. And that's an easier way for me to have people all in one place. And then also, just in case if like Twitter goes down, you know where to find me, even though you can find me on other social media platforms like Instagram, Substack, YouTube, even by email. Like, I am not that hard to get in contact with. All of my haters think that I'm very hard to get in contact with to have a conversation with, but that's not here nor there. But that's just to think about. So, for the idea of the chat community, it is basically a place where we can discuss not only wrestling. I'll do these voice notes to where like I give maybe some morning thoughts, stuff like advice on podcasting, advice on like where you can have your podcast, whatever I come up with. Those will be uh here. This podcast. This Discord is made for intentional purposes. It's not a gotcha. It's not a dunk on people. It's not to be like, look at this idiot on Twitter. Look at this bot, because most of them are bots and most of them don't believe the things that they say. This Discord is made for intentional purposes where we could have conversations, where we could try to understand differences, where we can try to, go a little bit deeper and like support each other. Um, Even though that's like very loosely, because support differs from people, but it's just to be a shared space of intentional and thoughtfulness. That's why I've been like really slow to create content and create, different types of content because I want it to be very thoughtful. I'm more about quality over quantity. When you have quantity, everything just seems to be blurred all together. And then you're asking the same questions in the interviews. And it's like, that's not really helping people to put them on a platform, get them a spotlight, and like try to find something that they never talk about when you're interviewing them or when you're researching something. I try to do things a little bit more thought provoking and whatnot. So, yeah, I guess I'm going to do a part two just so that way you guys can understand part one and like digest it. I'll make a part two. So, stay tuned for part two. Welcome to part two. Aside from the drama podcasts that I have up, which basically talks about the Twitter drama and people running with the wrong idea of me saying that MLW to save New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that blew up to where people were intentionally just wanting to make it their own narrative, and I was not allowing them to make it their own narrative, and they all got upset at me. It's like, I'm not going to play your emotional game of let's have this conversation in an emotional way and let me get you as scared as I am. Like, no, we're not going to do that. Aside from that, I know that the review shows have been very sparse, to say the least. And that's because I've noticed that wrestling is not always going to be sustainable. That's what like any kind of entertainment format that is not going to be sustainable. So like you have to pivot. And I've been doing this for like 6 years. Other people have been doing it longer, but this is just me. These are my voice notes. These are my thoughts. For the past 6 years, I've been doing this journey straight with no type of pivot, no type of different direction. I have my interviews, I have my review shows, but then I started to notice on how WWE is moving in terms of who are they aligning themselves with to become more mainstream, and that's partly due to being part of TKO where they want to be more mainstream and stuff and they want to do more like in-house stuff. And so I'm seeing that WWE is starting to do in-house stuff. Of course, when you're affiliate with Netflix always does a lot of in-house documentaries and stuff like that. And WWE is not really reaching out to the same influencers that they once were a little bit before the TKO merger and all of that. You still see some of the influencers that end up in the video packages. But that's like a cutthroat kind of deal where people are just sitting there reacting and they're not really giving value. They're just reacting so that way a casual viewer who's watching the WWE programming can definitely be like, oh my God, I want to watch WWE too. They look like they're having fun. That's marketing 101. Like marketing 101. If you want to call it brainwash, you can call it brainwash, but it's marketing 101 to the point of they hooked a casual viewer who's not going to be tuning in weekly, who may have the money to buy the tickets, who may have the money to buy the merch. So good on the influencers, but I do not want to be competing with the influencers that one don't give value. I don't really think they give value. If you think they give value, then okay, but I really don't think so. Sitting in front of your computer or laptop, making old faces, covering your eyes, heightening your voice if you're a female to be like, oh my God, did you see that? She fell through the table. I never seen that in my life. Those type of like reactions. It's like, how long you been watching wrestling? And then if I call it out or if a guy calls it out, we are like public enemy number one. It's like you don't have to overreact to basically get your chat into it and get the engagement going. Like we've seen all these tactics before. So like I don't want to be part of a culture where the influencers have to be completely 100% fake and then get upset when they get called out on it. But as you've seen, WWE is moving away from certain influencers, even though, like, they still bring on other people to do interviews at the media press and all that kind of stuff for WWE. I'm not saying that I won't eventually get there or won't eventually be a part of that. But right now, I want to focus on other things to show that I could be very useful everywhere else, and eventually I'll make my way back to WWE. I don't know how, I don't know when, but that's just my promise to me. Right now, I am enjoying my opportunities with Major League Wrestling. Like, I love those guys. I love the locker room. I love who I work with. Like, they are super professional. I've worked with certain indies, and I'm just like, oh, night and day. Anyway, the point is that I choose quality over the quantity of what you see. And because I'm noticing how WWE is moving and they're, like I said, they're going more in-house with the people that they trust. And this is a thing in business across like the world, across the space, or maybe just across the country. Let's just put it towards across the country. People tend to hire or go with people they trust that show up every single day. So yeah, I rather not be in competition with all the rest of the influencers, and I don't want to ever come off as fake when we're talking about professional wrestling, when I'm breaking down professional wrestling. I want it to be as honest as I can be. If I need to throw in a couple of jokes, I'll throw in a couple of jokes, but the main thing is that I always want to be as honest as I can with professional wrestling. If we're breaking it down, if we're reacting to something, if something needs a little bit more explanation, if I disagree with something, I always tell you guys, this is why I disagree with it. These are my reasons. And if it's backed up by something, and I'll be like, because of X, Y, and Z, I got it from here, or I heard it, from this story and I've seen it, like experienced it. There's no way that I'm going to be making up some lies just so that you guys can like me. Like, why would I need to do that? I really don't. If someone needs to make up lies just for you to like them, they are very insecure about themselves. If someone is very secure about themselves, they will tell you what's up. They will tell you the truth. And then if they really don't know something, be like, I have no idea. And if it ever comes down to that, I will say I have no idea. And then if we need to, I'll research it with you guys and be like, oh, okay, this makes more sense. Now I see where you're coming from, because knowledge is power. That's also another thing in this Discord, that like us sharing things would be very knowledgeable, would be very great, because we get to learn from each other. And that's what I really do want to learn. I want to learn from each other. You know what I mean? You guys could get it. But yes, so the Discord is basically me pivoting to doing other things other than professional wrestling. That does not mean that I'm giving up on professional wrestling. I'm not doing that. Professional wrestling is my life through and through. It will still always be my number one love in this world, my number one calling. However, you do kind of notice that it's getting a little more fluctuated with more people. And then on Twitter, you can't tell. I mean, you could tell that there are people, maybe people, bots, and then just people that just want to say stupid shit. And the negativity never reflects people coming over to support your work. And, there's no way to be like, yo, I need you to come support my work because it'd be nice. You talk all this shit, why not just come support my work? But that never fucking happens. Because you can block people on Twitter, but you don't necessarily block them on YouTube until they show up. And if they still act a fool, you could still block them there. But because, you don't block them yet on YouTube, they don't show up, but they'll still curse your name, drag you through the mud on Twitter. And it's like, what are you doing? You could just do the same shit on YouTube. Like somebody was in the comment section during one of my premieres and was talking shit and I'm like putting this person in their place to be like, yo, why the fuck you talking shit for? There's no reason for you to go to one of my premieres to be like, AEW is not destroying New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't know what you're talking about. And New Japan Pro Wrestling is doing fine. And it's like, bro, did you really come here to say all the same talking points that they say on Twitter and it still gets debunked? Like, you really think I'm going to enter into this emotional conversation with you? I am not going to enter into this emotional conversation with you, but like, damn, man, like, you guys got to stop doing that. Um, Part three, because I just keep on talking. I guess this is great for people who come in here and just want to listen to me rant, but part three is coming soon. Okay, so let me get to the actual bulk, the actual meat, for the lack of a better phrase, N word, I don't know, of what the chat community is going to be about and what my content is going to be about. And I can't believe that I am really saying this here in a Discord that I have yet to invite people. And then when you finally listen to this, you have been invited, so do not take anything personally. This is just me talking off the top of my head. I have been putting it off rather than procrastinating because part of me, I feel like I am a perfectionist, even though I'm not sure if I would ever believe it. I can say it a million times and I can see it, I can feel it, but I don't know. I just won't give into, yes, that's a fact, even though I think it is a fact. But I do have in my mind and in my DNA to be a perfectionist, and sometimes I hate it. But this time I'm building something with intentional and very thoughtful and very like, how can I make it the best experience for people so that way the spark and the freshness don't leave a discord and it doesn't die. And I really do love the idea of a community because a community keeps everything going. Everyone has a certain part to play or a role to play. Everybody is uniquely different. Somebody may offer a different perspective in like X, Y, and Z, and then we're all like, oh shit, that's a really good idea. And then other times we're sort of like challenging it so that way the other person who presented the idea can grow and we can all grow and we learn from each other. Like a community takes care of each other. Whether like it's very difficult to sort of explain in a very general, broad sense because everybody will want to like put the microscope on this conversation that I'm trying to bring up. Not really a conversation that I'm trying to bring up, just the idea that I'm trying to bring up about community. They will want to put a microscope on it and then like really dissect it. I tend to look at all of my content as the bigger picture rather than the smaller picture because when you focus on like smaller picture, smaller stuff, you tend to want to nitpick every single little thing and then you tend to destroy it. When you accept that nothing is ever going to be perfect, then you'll have a lot more fun creating. And that's what I tend to do in my content is look at the bigger picture, talk about the bigger picture moments of like what's really the most important things to talk about, the most critical things to talk about. And when you tend to look at it from that way, you can sort of fix it. And then when you fix it, you can focus on the smaller things because what is supposed to happen if you like really think about it like a waterfall of like the big situations, the big problems, once they're taken care of, all of the smaller problems that you would have initially focused on can now fall into the right places, into the right puzzle pieces, and then everything could be great. Um, again, these voice notes are going to have me go every which way except for what I really want to talk about. Man. Anyway, so what I really want to do in my content, what I really want to pivot is going into Crossroads Interview and Crossroads Editorials, which just is a little bit different from like my normal content, which is just wrestling and breaking down stuff. It's not really that different. It's not like a huge like 360 of a pivot. You're still going to get breakdowns, you're still going to get interviews. It's just that for the longest, like I have a problem with naming things and running with the name of like a show or whatever, because again, if there's no freshness to it, if there's no spark of life to it, if there's no engagement to it, I feel like it's dead in the water, because I do rely on engagement, but not like rage bait or any type of clickbait type of engagement, but just engagement from people who tend to interact with my content, and that is all over the world. My Spotify analytics, everybody listens to the Square Circle podcast from all over the world, and I am so incredibly thankful for that. And that also goes for anyone who listens on Substack, anyone who listens on YouTube. I am very grateful for everyone that does. Sometimes I just want, just a little interaction of like, hey, I enjoy this. Hey, I, didn't enjoy this. Here are my reasons why. Hey, can you, do a follow up on this? Hey, can you explain this to me? All I'm looking for is just a little engagement, but I understand that everyone has a life. So going back to like naming stuff. So like my interview series went through a different series of like, titles, such as in the very, very beginning, it was called a chit chat interview, because I don't know, we're having a chit chat where two people sitting down and or maybe, remote and getting interviewed. So a chit chat interview. And then I was just like, hey, I don't really think I can market that in a way. So then I changed it to Wrestle Tales, which I found out that there is a account by that name, and then also on YouTube, and I was like, I can't do that. Even though there are podcast shows with like similar names and stuff like that. So I decided to take. I think maybe it's been like 2 years since I haven't done an interview, maybe like a year and a half. Like I don't know. I'll get back to you on that, or maybe not. But like it's been a while. Okay, it's been a while since I did an interview, and I took a break from it. So I created Crossroads Interview because as I was brainstorming, I was like, yo, I've been doing the wrestling content creation for like 6 years, and I'm seeing how industries, well, WWE mainly, is moving when they're picking their people, when they're picking their influencers or not picking their influencers anymore. So like, I need to move also, and also showcase that I could do different things other than professional wrestling, because there's other things that I like that I really just don't talk about, and it never really comes up in conversation. And in my head I was like, how much longer can I talk about professional wrestling if everybody is reviewing WWE content, meaning like Raw, SmackDown, NXT, the NXT pay-per-views? Like, do you really need my extra opinion on WWE content? um with the in regards to TNA, I don't really get to watch TNA as many do. I was able to catch like the free TNA show that they had on the YouTube channel like last week, but like that's not going to be in my rotation. I don't watch AEW. I only have Twitter tell me what AEW is doing and I react to it. So please pay attention to that. I'm very truthful about that. And then with New Japan Pro Wrestling, with whatever the fuck is going on, for some reason it's like you guys need to listen. Like, I don't know, New Japan is doing New Japan stuff with AEW and they're like crawling at this point. And then there's MOW that I love to review and I love to tell you guys behind the scenes stuff. And on Thursday, with New Japan showing up on MLW, hint hint, you know I got all that weird ass fucking backlash. So, again, how much longer can I talk about professional wrestling? I could talk about the indies, I could talk about that stuff, but that requires an upkeep of $10 a month for like IWTV. And those wrestling networks hurt the wrestling businesses in the long run, because I can't like show you guys. There's also Evolve too, but like, make sure you listen and tune in to Dose Evil and Dr. White Chocolate, or as they like to say, Dr. White Chocolate and Dr. or Dose Chocolate. I don't know how they're calling each other now, but those two buddies of mine, Dose Evil and Dr. White Chocolate, host an Evolve review show over on the Wrestling Soup. So go support them. So how much longer can I talk about wrestling if like I don't always want to sound negative to people who think that I'm always negative, and I really don't want to keep repeating the same things over and over and over again. So I was thinking about CrossRoads. I'm currently at a crossroads in my 6 years of doing wrestling content. So what do I want to do? So I want to start doing CrossRoads interview, where it's basically me interviewing creators, wrestlers, a cultural voice. Basically, tell me about the craft, tell me about your creative process, tell me about like a time maybe you didn't want to go on, you didn't see like where you could go with this, and was whatever they're doing, whatever creativeness that they're doing, like was it their first love? I'll create better questions, but the idea is to get the story out in front of people to listen to. It's not the same like, oh, who inspired you, who trained you, what are your goals and aspirations. It's more about like nitty gritty stuff, but again, I would have to do research. So they are crossroads interviews. We're at a crossroad. Sometimes people get to a crossroad and they get an epiphany and they're like, this is what they were meant to do, and they're going to continue to do it, but they're going to continue to do it in a very high level kind of way. And it's like, I want to know that kind of thinking. I want to like psychologically, I want to know. And then there's Crossroads Editorials, where it's a little bit different, where this could be sometimes about wrestling, it could be sometimes about life, it could be sometimes about my favorite music artists. Like, I'll tell you here right now, the first Crossroads Editorial that I want to do, other than the intro for Crossroads Editorial, is an editorial about Nickelback, because I basically refound or rediscovered Nickelback in 2025, and I fucking love it. And I saw their documentary Hate to Love, and I want to look at it through the lens of a wrestling fan, and the lens of just breaking it down and like expanding on certain things, and talking about like cultural shifts and fan shifts and fandoms, and how social media plays a part into it. And the goal is to not only shine a light on this, but also to maybe try to get an interview too. That's part of the goal, but in a very respectful kind of way to get that goal. The second editorial I want to do is about AEW and how they could have been the alternative with all the vlogs, and I'll look into that. That's going to take a little bit more research. And then there's some other ones that I want to do as well, but Crossroads Editorial is the think pieces that won't make it onto the Square Circle podcast. The Crossroads editorials can be found on marieshadows.substack.com. So it's going to be a Substack thing. It's going to have, it's going to be under the Crossroads banner. I don't know. Stay tuned for more details, but the newsletter is like the sure way to do that. And I think I created one for YouTube and whatnot, like another YouTube podcast. Like, stay tuned, okay? I'm still figuring out the details, but this is me being honest. This is me sending you the longest voice note until I create some other voice notes. But, this is what Crossroads is. Crossroads is like the next chapter. The Square Circle podcast is always going to be there. I once thought about changing the name of the Square Circle podcast because everyone has Square Circle in their name as a podcast, but I've been doing it for 6 years. It's a brand name, it's a household name. It's part of me and my identity, my branding and stuff. It's what people know me as. But so I decided to keep it as is. However, that doesn't mean that I cannot stop creating. I didn't even talk about Ringology. Just very quickly, my laptop is about to die. But just very quickly, Ringology is all about talking about wrestling terminology. The next one is going to be about the word mark, and the next one is going to be about the word shoot, SHOOT. Nothing like, not in the bad context. So please do not try to like report that. But yeah, so the first one was about work because everyone was up in arm about the art truth. Was it a work? Was it not a work? And then some idiot kid had a mouth off to me, so I had to put him in his place. And so Ringology is basically that. Tape study series is going under Ringology. So if I'm going to be breaking down a show, it's under that banner. And by the way, if you want to support me, I do have merchandise based on like Crossroads, based on Ringology, um, whatever kind of merchandise is over at the fourth wall. Again, just to reiterate, fourth wall is very, very similar to Patreon. However, fourth wall has a better vision for what I want to do creatively and how I want my website to be, how I want the merchandise to be, how I want the extra memberships to be for extra content and stuff like that. So fourth wall is the place to be for supporting me via merchandise and membership and just telling people about where they can support me and stuff like that. So if you want to get stickers, cups, hats, whatever it is, you guys can. But I do appreciate you listening to this long, very voice notes. And if anybody wants to reply to any of these voice notes, just make sure, to go to the next section and reply to something or tell me something. That's where you can write it in. Here is just listening and audio. And I appreciate every single one of you guys that come on in and enjoying the Discord. Until next time, guys, I'll see you on the next voice note.